How do Orisha's fit into all of this? How do I approach this? How do I use this to get free? Because getting free is my objective. Dealing with European hegemony is my objective. I'm tired of being dominated. But if that don't really serve this, then why do I need to do it? So that's a question I don't have an answer to.
I gotta look at history. And when them Europeans came to Africa, we had all that African spirituality.
Yeah.
That wasn't the deciding factor. So I don't know if that's the deciding factor now. What was the deciding factor still is that they are willing to go much further than we are to get what it is they want. And we do have limits we set for ourselves and how far or how deeply we're willing to engage them. I don't know. So I don't know if maybe sometimes it was that spirituality holding us back from doing that. They don't have any. They have none at all.
And they moving right along.
They are moving right along and they are doing great.
I want to be free. I want you to be free. I want us to be a self-governing people, not having to ask the white man or anybody for anything. All normal, healthy human beings want to be self-governing and self-determining. I want to have a black power. I want to have a black government. When I say black power, I'm talking about black freedom. I'm talking about big lip freedom. I'm talking about broad nose freedom. I'm talking about nappy hair freedom. I'm talking about boombox on your shoulder freedom. I'm talking about black freedom, freedom on our own terms.
So I appreciate everybody being here. This is a new episode of Life, Culture, and Re-Afrikanization. And really what the intent was when we thought about putting this to film was documentation of a lot of the conversations that we just have in passing. Not necessarily those formal. I think being you and I have known each other good at least 7 years.
Yeah.
We pushing on 30. We almost knocking 30 at the door and knowing each other. We got grown children. And we've had a lot of conversation. Some on 10. Rarely are they not on 10, but we had some that not on 10. And sometimes even when I think about our children, because they do happen in the fly, they don't get it, they don't catch it. So we could document it and capture it and have that in the vault for even our children, somebody's children to come by and also what it means to be African, to be Black, on a day-to-day. I remember we used to always have these conversations about when we study ancient Kemet, and we studying the stellars and the glyphs and but I'm like, I wonder what day-to-day life was like in Kemet. Like what like how was they just moving on the day-to-day? Who gonna write the day-to-day life of, you know? And so this is kind of that effort at that we kind of coming into. I think we all old enough to have come through the and I know Ben, you'll jump on this and take it a different direction later. But we came in this wave of consciousness, right? Don't act like it ain't no post out there that we moving away from consciousness.
I say a lot of
The
things.
conscious community. Yeah, there's no conscious community, right? Yeah. Don't act surprised. We want but we come up in that era where we call ourselves the conscious community. But even in trying to be conscious and being aware and being responsible, there's contradictions, there's shortcomings. We have children. I done had children out of wedlock. I done did all those things that, because it ain't about this whole idea of necessarily being righteous, but striving for righteousness. And a lot of times when I hear these conversations happen, they happen sometimes in this bubble of like, I have arrived, I'm Black in the Nile, I got this together. Like, nah, we figuring out this Black African thing every day as fathers, as men,
All
having
together.
to go out here and clock in and work at jobs we don't want to work at, and those contradictions to what we stand on. And so I just want to continue to maybe document those conversations so that other people, sometimes people think they have to be at a certain place in order to start to grasp and come out and be effective in community. I ain't got myself all the way together, what I look like.
You know, they say.
You ain't gonna never have it all the way together, definitely in this society.
Right.
So you might as well jump out there and try to be helpful in some way. So that's what spawned this, and to document that. But I'd like to start off, man, talk about what was your process like? What was that moment where, like, we talk about falling in love with hip hop? Like when you fell in love with hip hop, like when did you fall in love with being Black, or just being able to identify, like, standing on Blackness, standing on consciousness, standing like this, this direction I'm gonna move forward with in life, like this what I'm standing on versus where I may have been. And I know for some people it was gradual, and for other people it's like a gentle breeze. You don't really kind of remember that exact moment, but whatever it is, wrong. What?
Sure, I'm trying to think. I guess it was gradual. I feel like I grew up with it, but the point where I think the point where I really grasped it for myself, even some of the books I read at home, those were books that, it was just required reading. The books are on the shelf. Yeah. Malcolm was on the shelf. Yeah. Of course you're gonna read it. But I remember being at school when I first read ISIS paper. I was like, man, it was way different than anything else I'd ever read. And that was first year of college. And then when I was at home, I was reading these things in a bubble. So being at school and realizing, there's other people reading this stuff. There's other people understanding that. I think that was probably that moment. And then just kept diving into more books and speaking with more people. And I would say it didn't start there, but that was where I broke from upbringing, and I was doing it for myself, I would say.
And please introduce yourself. I'm sorry, I'm so informal. I know
Me
you,
too.
but this is actually a recording, so
Sure.
Yeah. So
You want to introduce yourself?
I'm wrong.
I'm Brother Black Panther from Mossy Warrior Clan. For me, it's a little unconventional from most people. I was in the military. I was in the military for 4 years in the United States Army. I was deployed to Afghanistan and got involved with the Masonic Lodge there. So there was a brother in the lodge. This brother, he put me on some books that I had never heard of. One of them being Black Square and Compass, 100 Years of Black Freemasonry. In this book, it had a bunch of contradictions to what we were normally taught in the Masonic Lodge. So that kind of, he kept throwing books at me, Moore Circle 7, just kept throwing stuff at me. And every book he would throw at me, it would contradict what I thought I knew. So my naturally inquisitive mind was, what do I know that's actually backed by information that's solid and, on a sound foundation? So I just started digging. Me and him were digging together. And when I got to the end of the rabbit hole from what he could show me, I realized a lot of the things I thought I knew were just not correct. They were built on lies. So that pushed me more towards the Dr. Benz and the Ashra Kwesi's and the people of the Kemet teachings. And I stayed there for a long time, eventually going to Kemet. So that was kind of my process to, come into the community. It was, somebody providing that spark. Yeah. I think we've all had that one person come around and they be like, hey, whether it could be your parents, it could be, somebody at the rec center, somebody, a friend, anybody, somebody at the church, you never know. But somebody to go, hey, young man, have you heard of this? And that moment, that was the brother, his name is Leon Wright. He's a Black Belt Hall of Fame, but he was a special district deputy of the Masonic Lodge. And he was the person to go, have you heard of this? Gotcha. Have you heard of that? And he kept feeding me. And I was reading all the books and coming back like, man, I thought man, this say, so it was that spark that put me on the path that I'm on now.
That's what's up.
Wow.
I know you talked about it in other episodes, but for those who, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm Trig, aka Worry Jallo, and my introduction started at a young age because I grew up in a town that had a slave market in the center of town. So they automatically kept me awake of, don't supposed to be here, first of all, and who am I? And so those questions led me to question other things, questioning Christianity, then eventually questioning Islam, then questioning Judaism, then just questions after questions. And when they couldn't be fulfilled, then I stepped into the next stage of life, which is like I deem them to be like initiations. But I think the biggest impact on me, I know a lot of people say they started reading like the autobiography from Malcolm X. I hear that all the time. I had never read the book at all. The first book I read was Mystery to the Black Man, the Elijah Muhammad book. From cover to cover, first book I ever had to read that didn't require from school, you know what I mean? So I read that. And that made an impact. But the biggest impact on me, well, when I left Christianity, I came into Islam. I met this brother that was selling like body lotions and hair gels and stuff that was homemade. And he was from Atlanta, and he was like, yo, so your mom told me you into this Islam thing. And he got to me and said, man, you need to leave that alone. You know what I'm saying? He kept saying that. And so I got in the van. He said, just come ride with me. So he was going around selling his products. And I'm riding in the van with him. I'm hearing this guy in a cassette talking. And this guy's talking about Saturn being in a certain position and all this stuff before this could happen, all that. And I'm like, who this guy? Who you listen to? He said, you don't know who this is, man? He's like, man, this is Bobby Hemmett.
Bobby Hemmett.
That's the first. That was the first person I was gonna guess.
It's Bobby Hemmett.
So this was like 1994, maybe, somewhere around there. No, this might be 93. It's somewhere like this because I was fresh out of high school. And so being exposed to listening to Bobby and eventually meeting Bobby and talking to him, whatever, it kind of expanded my consciousness, taught me how to think for myself, to think, you know what I mean, and be able to analyze.
Yeah.
And the ideal of having a bibliography and having references. The whole setup that you learn with scholarship, where you got to have a reference. So that's why I appreciate what you're saying. Like, it questions what you believe, and then like you having the leg to stand on, that kind of thing. So from being rooted in the political situation in a small town in Georgia with a slave market in, then the question of the spiritual traditions and all those things led me to be who I am now. And then eventually traveling to the continent and seeing how people operate on a social level is what brought me to who I am now.
So with that, was there a distinction for y'all, like being aware and standing on your blackness versus identifying as an African? Because those things came separate for me. Like, my blackness still identified with Africa as the motherland. You know, and my greatest influence, and those know me, I make no secret. I don't read a lot. I read out of necessity, but y'all know me. I'm an auditory learner. I sit down. I sit at the feet of elders. I listen to lectures and go back to cassette tape days and VHS and like that's where I come from. So my greatest influence was hip hop. Like, that was my greatest conscious influence. When hey, Farrakhan's a prophet that I think you ought to listen to. I'm like, well, who's that? Let me go figure out who Farrakhan is, And so you just think about that whole era. And even though Stetsasonic was a whole song about the country, the motherlands and all this, I didn't necessarily connect with me being an African. I connected with me being from, at some point, right, in history, people from Africa, but not self-identifying as an African. So did those things come together simultaneously for y'all? And if it didn't, when did being an African emerge in your life, and what was that influence?
No, they definitely weren't at the same time for me. I guess when you asked the question, yeah, I was always aware, but I don't know if I was fully conscious of it, if that makes sense. But to me, that's still an ongoing process. So I'm not sure I can identify a particular time or date or event that in which I said, no, I'm African.
Yeah.
Because for long periods of time we were, and even in early 90s, late 80s, we were black.
Yeah. Yeah.
And African wasn't really part of it.
Yeah.
So always knew obviously came from it, but calling myself African, I don't know.
But even in that, even in that though, that was part of the conversation when Drake was here that we was having, because there was a time period, I'm 52, there's a time period where being black wasn't cool. Right. Like I'm not black, I'm a Negro. That was a real, and I don't know whether that's geographical, like that was maybe more in the South than in
it went through stages.
Yeah,
from Afro-American, African-American.
Black wasn't always cool.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. For me, they definitely didn't happen at the same time, but me being African, I didn't have a choice to accept or reject that identity because my father is West African.
Yeah.
So I knew from birth, oh no, your people from here.
That's a different.
Right here.
It's a different thing. Yeah.
This country, this city, people still there with your name. Yeah. They know who you are. Like, it's different from me.
Yeah.
But even with that, I didn't know what that really meant until, growing up and finding out how central Africa is to what we're doing right now, what we're talking about, the building amongst brothers right now. I didn't really understand what the privilege of me knowing where. I didn't know that was a privilege growing up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought everybody knew it.
No, sir.
No.
Until you get to like middle school and you hear people, asking these questions, and I'm just sitting there like, oh.
Yeah, African booty scratching kid.
Oh, I was him.
Yeah.
I was him. I was you an African booty scratcher, you so black, you da-da-da. I got all the jokes.
Yeah.
We had the same conversation before. I'm like, I've literally.
Yeah, Trey said he never heard it.
Anybody say that?
I got all the jokes.
I've never heard it.
I got all the jokes. I got dropped
African Porsche monkey.
Yeah,
I got all the moon cricket. I got all that.
Wrong. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I'm moving in my early life. I'm moving from Los Angeles, California, to Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. So I'm literally going from a very diverse population to basically all black town. All black middle school. I didn't have an other person in my graduating class. There was 365 of us. And out of that 365, we was all black. Mm-hmm. So, you would think moving from here all the way to there, I'm around black folk. I ain't gonna get no jokes and that. I'm gonna get up. Yeah, right. The jokes intensified being around, just black people in the South. And, that was an adjustment coming from the West Coast. But yeah, I got all of those types of jokes. And it took a while for me to understand where those jokes were coming from because of our, ignorance of our history.
But
and our ignorance of...
People always say that about it, but whether you'd been anything, you would have got those jokes.
I would have got some jokes. Because we joke.
We don't make money for anything.
Yeah, we black folk. We would have got jokes.
With these nicknames for everybody, even people in their own community. So I think people think it's like specific for other groups or whatever we have these names for, but it could have been anybody. You still would have got it.
I never took it so personal as...
It ain't personal.
As they're berating Africans
or
because even they would call me that. I'm still on the basketball team. I'm still hanging out after school. I'm still. That's just jokes. When you travel back to the continent, you learn that those jokes are in African societies as well. So my last name is Njai. So Njai. And our great ancestor, Sheikh Anta Diop, some people say Diop, it's pronounced Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop is that's a clan.
Right.
Njai is a clan. These two have a sibling rivalry. So if I show up to a party and Diop's throwing the party, and they say, oh no, the Njais are here, hide the food. Like that's what they do. He's like, oh, you with that brother down the street? Oh, he an Injine. You better watch out. Like that's just the relationship between the two tribes. It's nothing malicious. It's nothing whatever. It's just what they have. So understanding that as an adult and looking back at my experiences as a youth, I never took it as, oh, they don't like Africans or they trying to do this, they trying to get under my. It's just regular social interaction for me. Like, if it wasn't Africa, if it wasn't me being dark, it would have been me being tall. It would have been me having big hands. It would have been me having big feet. It would have been something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm the new kid coming into town. They didn't grow up with me.
We said that the children that ain't from Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen.
Right.
I'm just new. Directly, like
I'm just a new kid in school. Whatever. It would have been something.
Dark skin and peasy head. You was
like for me, right, I got because my nose, which later on I came to find out it meant a whole lot. But like I used to get hawk nose all the time, right?
Okay.
Duck nose, hawk nose, eagle boy, all these little nicknames.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny because like they used to call me Sticks because I always was slim. My mom's slim.
Yeah,
my
me
mom's
too.
the slimmest person in her family.
Yeah.
So I was always slim. So and I go back and look at all this stuff they called me and all this, and then find out later I was Fulani. I'm like, all the identification of Fulani.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying?
There it is.
The nose, the slim body. I'm like, God,
they was
it's
putting
all
you on game the whole time.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like, I didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
There it is.
But it's funny though. I'm like, oh my God, man.
Full circle.
Yeah, my Africa didn't come until my introduction to Dr. Clark and everything related to Pan-Africanism.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was black. I was, when in my incarceration, all my study was primarily Black Panther Party for self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was kind of really centered and rooted in being black and being proud. Nothing with any real ancient historical context.
Right.
So, I was just sharing with Rome the other day, like each one of the young men I call my brothers, right? Tree, Rome, Greek, Ghost, Shakur. I know I can remember coming out of incarceration being Muslim, but a different kind of Muslim. Listen,
it was different.
I was already straggling like, I feel like they trying to make me be an Arab. I knew I ain't want to do the nation because I really had a real issue about the Malcolm thing. And listen, I couldn't put it all in context, didn't know the FBI. Listen, I just know two dudes who in the Nation of Islam pulled the trigger and Malcolm was gone.
And like little Chris.
And then even the statements that started being made, that's what the nation does to its traitors and all that. I was like, oh no.
Regardless of the circumstances, you had an issue.
I got an issue with that.
That's understandable.
And so I was, strapping, but Islam for me took me out the streets. Mm-hmm. So I had a certain connection to it on that emotional level. Like I was, raised Christian, not necessarily church going, but raised Christian. Mm-hmm. And was facing 40 years, went back to school, because you know how you do like that. At least when I go to court, I want to be working and in school and look like I didn't do this. And so I went back to CP to go to school and ran into a brother on the elevator. I don't know why this brother chose me, but he was like, if I give you some books, would you read them? I instantly went, this brother asked me to read. How big are they?
How big are they?
Are we talking about commitment?
Are we talking about message to the black man? Or are we talking about a black blueprint for black power? What we talking?
He was Sunni Muslim, so he gave me Gospel of Barnabas and Jesus the Prophet of Islam. But it raised enough questions in me. And then when I was coming back asking questions, at least from Islamic perspective about religious questions and my second guesses in Christianity, he was sharp. Then I started going to Muslim student organizations, meetings, and they all seemed so disciplined. You know what I mean? I was like, I think this is what I need. Mm-hmm. It was the discipline. Like, I think I need something. And so, I took my Shahada and started bumping my head. Still end up being found guilty sentenced to 14 years, 7 mandatory, going to penitentiary. You know, you're in there, so it's Muslim. It's Muslims. But I never knew, like, even through hip hop, I seen the 5%ers. I seen the God bodies dude, but I ain't understand it. Like, I hear it in the music because I was a poll writers, teachers. Like,
That was that era.
my consciousness made me
That was
angry.
that era.
I don't know about y'all conscience, but my conscience, I went into that, man, these white folks.
I
Like,
think we
literally,
all
I'm
been-
going to, this 4 black
We all
folks took
get
over
that.
the Waffle House in the South. And we going up in the Waffle House and start fight. Like, I'm spitting on white food. Like, I feel like I'm standing on what hip hop telling me to stand on, you know, and not even that, just even not wearing gold no more. Like that whole the feeling, understanding apartheid in South Africa. Remember having a red t-shirt with a picture of Steve Biko on it, you know, stop apartheid in South Africa. Like that's what hip hop and consciousness did for me. But I didn't have no identification with anything spiritual.
Yeah, I'm saying,
The-
I was saying like that.
the
'Cause I told
culture.
you how I even got introduced to Mr. Black Man was Chuck D. They was Harlem Book Fair. They was walking. It was on Yo TV Raps. They was walking through Harlem at the book fair, and he was like, "This is the book every black man should read." And that's what caused me to go out and buy the book.
Buy the
in
book,
first
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Hip hop is a huge influence on that because I listen to Poor Rights Teachers, Brand Nubians, YZ. I think the guy was named back then.
Yeah. Rakim the Great.
Rakim, Karis One, all of them. So they kind of that influence.
I see what you did there.
Here we go. What did you say? What did you say, Karis?
He said Rakim the greatest. We go. Hold on.
Yeah.
Go. Ain't going down. We go down. Just start. You know. Seem like good timing.
Yeah.
So
So that was it. But again, I agree also. There is a distinction between, you know, being black and proud and being African.
Yeah.
And I think all through that whole phase of my life, I was more, you know, black and proud than I identified as being an African. Now, I did always say that I really had a feeling that we were Africa, from Africa, like real deep rooted, because of the slave market. I'm like, okay, we were brought here. That was always instilled in us because we had to see this every day.
What part of Georgia was that?
From Louisville, Georgia.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and so
Oh, yeah.
it's so interesting. So I was credit Rome for giving me Kemet, right? Rome and Ra, you know, being introduced to the Science Society. But Rome was now he was on a slightly different Kemet at that time. You know, it was Corpus Hermetica and kind of Kabbalion Kemet, but it's Kemet nonetheless. Listen, brother got into an argument with Bobby Hemmett, Frazier,
Listen, Bobby Hemmett got
about Shiva. Listen, this ain't wild. But Trig introduced me to metaphysics, but I also credit Trig for the cultural expressions of being African, like art and pictures and this love for melanated women. Like I would love black women, but it's something different when you add that extra layer of melanated on it, and then, you know, taking me to Atlanta and to Little 5 Points and you know, kind of getting introduced to that world. And Drake, we know Drake solid on I'm African, ancestors, creator, family, community. And so this is what we was rooted in. So you added McCabe Fest, introducing me to John Hancock, Dr. Ben, Amos Wilson. Now I'm getting the Walter Rodney, like it's a whole nother, like I knew Africa, but not like this.
Yeah.
Right? I'm African.
Yes,
like y'all know what y'all on. I ain't even just okay with the black thing. I'm black African.
I'm black African.
Yeah, African thing. So in saying that though, which way I want to go first? What role does Africa play, and African spirituality in particular, play in our efforts towards liberation, towards, being a powerful free, proud, and productive people on the planet again? Can we achieve these things without tapping into that? What role does it play? Because I know Rome, we often had that conversation. Like, how do the Orishas fit into all of this? How do I approach this? How do I use this to get free? Because getting free is my objective. Dealing with European hegemony is my objective. I'm tired of being dominated. But if that don't really serve this, then why do I need to do it? So that's a question I don't have an answer to that, because I think I've attempted to answer it on several different occasions. And if I didn't phrase it right, please phrase it more appropriately.
No, I get what you mean.
So what do y'all think? What role does it play? African culture, African spirituality in that?
I gotta look at history, and when them Europeans came to Africa, we had all that African spirituality.
Yeah.
That wasn't the deciding factor. So I don't know if that's the deciding factor now. What was the deciding factor still is that they are willing to go much further than we are to get what it is they want. And we do have limits we set for ourselves and how far or how deeply we're willing to engage them. I don't know. So I don't know if maybe sometimes it was that spirituality holding us back from doing that. They don't have any. They have none at all.
And they moving right along.
They are moving right along, and they are doing great. And in many instances, I feel that our we do have, as a people, we're very conservative, and we do have high moral values. And I think that when it comes to engaging them, we often apply our morals that we should be applying to one another. We apply it to them.
Yeah.
And I think that ends up, I think it was the downfall then by looking at them and thinking, oh, they're human like us. And we were wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
And if
Wrong.
we were dead wrong.
So
they thought we were less than them, and we thought they were equal to us. We were both wrong.
But I also think that sometimes the idea about Netas, Orisha, or whatever, right, has been mythified in a way that ain't accurate to the practice, especially the practice on the continent. Like, I think that when we do, let's say, just to use a Bobby Hemmett or somebody who comes at it that's not necessarily a practitioner in these things, and they start to talk about the power of, the supernatural, these deities, and that we can commission these deities to do this, or commission these to be
Show me.
to be bulletproof. And I don't know if that's ever what the people who brought these traditions into the world ever said or propagated that they were I could use this to stop European invasion. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's never come across to me in my understanding, right? I've heard it, but I've never been taught.
I think we need to take like a step back from the African spiritual component and just look at the African culture as a whole, because spirituality comes out of culture. It's a component of culture, but it's not the end all be all to the entire culture. It's interwoven, but it's not like static by itself. African culture is something that if we practiced it in its form of how it's supposed to be, we can alleviate a lot of things that we get ourselves into because we're practicing European culture in America. Most people that you run into have been westernized. They don't have a choice. They're born into the Western society. Their values, their morals, their scruples all come from Western societies or foreign religions. So this is what they internalize. This is what they know. This is how I'm supposed to do things. If we pivot that and we teach the other side what we were supposed to have grown up in, we can alleviate ourselves from a lot of things that we get ourselves into. As far as the spirituality and component, I agree with you. There is I always say this, and I have to preface this with I am a priest of Ogun. So my perspective is a little different. The Orisha and other African systems, when they get to America, the commercialization is almost like they're wrapped in bubble wrap. Abundance, take the high road, protection, always love and light. That's not what them cultures be saying. For example, Ogun, it said the one who has a storehouse full of water, but rather bathe in blood. But you never, it's different from what,
That's different.
that's different from what people present to you.
Yeah.
Like, there's stories about him cutting off people's heads. There's stories about him going in towns, destroying everyone in the town. There's stories about him. They say you never let Ogun in your house. There's stories that we don't get to hear on this side of the water. We haven't done the necessary root work in different cultures to understand how some of these things can definitely be used for now. We haven't done this systematic study to say, hey, not only did they use this for these things, but you can still use them now, but no one's talking about it for a reason.
So to Roll's point though,
Mhm.
take us out of it for a second,
Okay.
right? If we have been kind of watered down in the West and our practice and understanding, I think Roman's point is they had it on the continent,
And that's not
they
what
were
killed them.
practicing the way it was intended to be practiced.
True.
And we still.
But he said something key, and that was the worst thing we could have done. But we had no other examples. We thought they was human like us.
Right.
So no matter what, if you got a grenade launcher in your house, but you think this guy is operating on the same war principles as you, oh, I can't do that. And he know that he can't do that because we got an agreement and we soldiers and he gonna use it.
Yeah.
And you didn't use it because you thought he was human like you. And the most important thing I want to put out about what Brother Rome said, because he brought up a great point, but the aspect of there was no such thing as Pan-Africanism at that time is what killed us. If you, like Brother said, he's Fulani. He found out his roots are Fulani. If I'm Senegambian, war breaks out, famine breaks out, whatever breaks out in Nigeria, he seeks asylum in Senegambia. He's a Fulani in Senegambia. I didn't look at him as an African. I didn't look at him as a black man. I didn't look at him as someone that I should have some type of unity or cultural pride in. I looked at him as a Fulani that come into my land, and if something happens, he gonna be the first one to go. Because I'm gonna protect my folks. That was the lay of the land. We had no other experience. We didn't understand the European. That's why John Henry Clark always says, study your enemy. Don't throw away your Bibles. Don't throw away the things that they've produced. Study them, because when you study them, you need to understand how they think. We had no idea, like Brother Rome said, the lengths they would go to put us in certain situations. We had no idea that they would go to the Oyo Empire and say, hey, them dudes over there don't really like you like that. They talking about shutting down. They talking about shutting down your trade routes. They talking about doing this. And they was offering us this much money. And they said they're going to declare war on y'all. What? Oh, no. Here, take this. Give me the guns that you got, because we got to fight them back. And then going over there to the Oyo, hey, we just sold them some guns because they talking about they going to declare war on y'all. How could they do that? They was just here paying tribute. Oh, for real? Oh, okay, it's on. And then just sitting back and,
Yeah, I still think it's a hard
we
spell.
gonna get you.
I do think and I think what does happen is that it does get isolated into a silo, and I think that's one of the main issues. And then because it gets isolated in this silo, then people expect it to be able to do something that it only can do in context of the rest of life.
You talk about this African spirituality.
Yeah, like want to weaponize spirituality. No, you weaponize your living. Like, you don't weaponize this aspect. It's a component,
Yeah.
right?
It exists.
It exists, but I think sometimes it's been sold like all I gotta do is go to a
Right. I wouldn't.
If I pray
wouldn't
right,
put it
if I
that way.
offer right,
I wouldn't put it that way.
wake up tomorrow and they all gone. Like,
Yeah, that's not realistic.
Yeah. and so people get disappointed because they was kind of sold like that idea of even from hoodoo or whatever, like put the name in the pot. Like, I take the name, I put the name in the pot and
that's it.
like, all right, so if I can do that with little Ray Ray down the street because he reneged on the spade game and I want to get
Why I can't do that on the IRS?
That's when it
they
started
say I
looking
own.
like, that's when it started looking crazy because people selling you on these small incremental blessings or examples of where I did this and this was the result and I won.
Right.
We're like, so how we scale that up? Like,
right.
I don't know if it can. I'm sorry, Trey.
No, that's fine. I think like far as the spiritual component, I think it's a level of inspiration that comes from it. Like when they did, like if you even talk about the Haitian Revolution, that doing these rituals and the energy that builds from it, there's something take place when these rituals happen, and you feel otherworldly. Like it's beyond the so-called Western explanations, like the type of energy that fills your body. So if you can harness that type of, that aspect during conflict, that's what
with a strategy.
Yeah.
With a strategy. With this.
I agree.
That's what's not being taught.
That I agree with, and I can speak to that personally.
Yeah.
First time I did a men's retreat in Atlanta with the Asar set, but it wasn't just Asar set, it was brothers from all kind of places. Okay. And the last day of the retreat, they had told us to bring some all white. And bring all white, wake up in these chairs in this big circle. Gotta be about 100, bro. I wish Rob was here to tell you. And this brother who had, I guess, incantated Heru came out. He's possessed.
Oh, he's mounted. Okay.
And he talking, he throwing apples, slicing with machetes. And they had this bowl or something. And they started, now I'm Muslim at this time, right? So they got these 3 shrines set up. One to the ancestors who gone, ancestors that are walking amongst us, and those ancestors who have yet to come. So they had these 3 shrines set up. Now me, I'm like, oh, that shirt.
What is this shirt?
I'm not associating nothing with Allah. So life must have knew not to start with me. So they passed this bowl.
They skipped you.
Listen, no, it started on the left, it went left, right?
Okay.
So brothers is taking a sip out of this bowl. Then the brother who was mounted, pull him up. Drums is blazing. Brothers start dancing. They go to each shrine. So every time, it's like 100 of them. So I got time. So as
you just looking.
So I'm like, I'm trying to justify in my mind how not to be disrespectful to this moment. But I'm like, I'm not committing shirt. So I'm like, I don't know. Then it's like 50 people to drink out that thing already. Like, that ain't sanitary. So all this is blazing through my mind. But as it gets close, I start to say, okay, I don't really have a problem with ancestors. I ain't gonna worship them. I'm gonna just go show respect, right? So I got that. But these brothers is dancing. Y'all know me.
Yeah.
I don't dance. I'm not doing all that dancing and pulling me up. I still don't know about that drink.
I got real concerns about that drink.
But when it gets to me, I had made all the justifications to participate in my mind.
That boy worried about backwash.
Listen, man, absolutely. Yes.
What is in that bowl?
So I hit it, and whatever it was, it set my whole chest and soul on fire. I don't know what gin, hit it. Brother didn't grab me though. It's like intuitively knew. He didn't pull me up. Hit it. He walked away. Now I'm like, oh, don't trip on me like that. Listen up.
Now you're like, wait, come back.
So I go to each shrine, greet each shrine. By the time I hit that 3rd shrine, bro, I was gone. Like I was gone. I just remember, I don't know how much time had passed.
Yeah.
But I remember just the drum stopping and me just hearing heavy breathing. Half the brothers had the shirts off, they was sweating, and it's,
Yeah.
but I remember this feeling like, man, they bust them doors open right now.
I'm going
I'll
first.
take
Yeah,
on.
I'm telling you,
Like it
it's
was
something
just
there.
this day, and I'll take. Second time was my first Akamalu Fest. Now you
was
already
there?
dealing with a bull.
Oh,
Right, you
all of
wasn't.
us were there.
No. You wasn't. You weren't at my first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think Yacht was the only one at the first one with me.
Okay, so we was
And
at the
Kofi,
second one.
and Kofi, Kofi was at the first one with me. I end up literally having the bull by the horns and wasn't supposed to. Drunk and so O'Doon get the cutting. The women is chanting it's dark. Now, mind you, the bull was supposed to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. The bull and the man that was supposed to be in the break, nothing was heard from.
That's the one that dropped it off and took off?
Listen, the second person came after 9, so 11 o'clock at night.
Ooh.
This white dude pulled in with this trailer and backing it up. And the sea of black people coming in all white with white influence on their face. And he was like, oh my, what have I signed up? He was like, let me help you get this. And listen, he took off. So we there. And O'Doon actually cut me. Right? Some of the moment, I get done. I see the bowl collecting the blood. I see it. But my mind, I see them putting the rum and I see them pouring the honey. I see them I see the mixture happening. They start, same thing, passing it around.
Yep.
And it get to me. Now Kofi looking at me like,
What you gonna do?
You, right?
Whatever you doing, I'm doing.
I look, a loud Lou in front of me. I look at a loud Lou and I say, oh, now I'm good. Try to, listen, Ebola, AIDS, everything in this bowl. Listen, every bloodborne pathogen gotta be in this bowl. I sound good. Listen, Loud Lou joke. Yeah, right. So Loud Lou had the serious face. He like, nah, brother. You're gonna be good when you hit that. I said, this is a different kind of peer pressure.
Nah.
Right? This ain't the 40 ounce of that you go.
You tried to.
But when I tell you,
No, brother.
I drank it and was on 1,000.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go to sleep until like 8 a.m.
Yeah, we was same thing with me.
Yeah.
Look,
I was up.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Listen, I'm ready. What we doing? Like I was, so to that point,
It's
like
different.
I've experienced that. So I do think the missing component is a true mission, strategy, objective.
You gotta have it all.
That like all like
Gotta
like
have it all.
that-
And transferring that energy,
Yeah,
do it with the ritual
yeah.
at the time of that conflict.
But
It's like that missing.
but I don't. I still lean towards, and I could be wrong. I know Kundaran see this, he might get me, but I do believe that I always struggle with this concept of an intervening creator. Always, like, listen,
Yeah.
I listen. I was innocent facing 40 years, praying to everything, and
You should struggle with
and
that.
still,
Yeah, you
and still, I
should,
still,
yeah.
I struggle. Like, I don't,
But if you look at the systems,
Uh-huh.
our creators don't do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So but I also put a little bit more limits for me on Orisha
Mm-hmm.
than some other people. Like
Mhm.
I believe in and you pointed out the old new book by Karanga, but there's a piece in there where he talks about that when there's a problem in the heavens,
Mm-hmm.
it is the job of the heavenly host to bring balance, right? To restore order back to the heavens. When there's an imbalance in the earth, it is the job of the earthly host to restore balance. Now, there could be some intersection. I just lean towards ownership on me. Now, if I'm backed up by some Orisha, that's cool. And I never see it, never know it, whatever. I don't depend on that being the thing that's going to get it done.
I
depend
don't
on
think you should.
my,
Check something
Yeah.
about that. I think from my perspective is that we keep looking like out here, but the fact that you are this mirroring reflection of that up there. It is you that is, like you say, is responsible for it, bringing the balance and the order. And it's because that we've been taught from this West perspective, like this is this abstract being away from us, right? And not understanding like, okay, this so-called abstract being, there's something under it that actually creates. And that creator, it doesn't, that creates, you're just a part of that creation, but it is you who is the reflection that it's all linked together. So the energy is there for you to do whatever you will. The thing is, the being seduced by what we deem reality, the sensory world, is what keep you from seeing yourself as being that can accomplish those things. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
And
But
I think
but
that's
to
what the
his
problem-
point,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, because when you in a situation and it don't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out at all, and you lose something that you can't never get back, where were y'all when this happened?
Yeah.
And that's not a
This thing that's continually happening.
right. So
With no relief in sight.
with
but-
no relief, and you don't
Y'all sleep?
and you don't understand why something could let that happen when you're supposed to support or whatever, right? And this is where I say we have to start really studying these traditions, because, like he said, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm a child or whatever," or this deity walks with me or whatever. Why didn't it come help me?
Yeah.
There's so many variables to that question. People not gonna like the answer sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm just speaking for the Yoruba tradition,
Yeah.
destiny is a part of our tradition. Everybody is not gonna have a blessed, loving.
Blessed around be blessed and highly favored.
No. Some people have lives that are going to be hard.
And I don't dismiss
You know,
that, but
that's-
it's why this is why I sidebar the whole thing, because it gets into this. It gets to start to sound like when the Christians hit me with the God moves in mysterious ways.
Nah,
like
it ain't the mysterious.
like, so
way.
whenever it don't go right, it just
There's another component of this.
it be the
But
bell I
this is the
play.
thing.
Like, I need you
This
accountable
is the
to-
thing, though.
Go ahead.
The other part of that is, did you do what you were supposed to do, and just speaking in general,
Yeah.
to call this into your life for anything to happen? And
Yeah.
for a lot of people, that's no.
For a lot.
Because for us, we don't even know what's in our lineage. We don't even know who to call.
Yeah.
What is even there? If you
But that's
have
the
this
thing.
deity in your lineage, it's supposed to be whatever. Hell, you can grow up knowing that.
Yeah,
How would I know
don't
that?
think, I just think there's no way of distinguishing those times where this is happening because you didn't do something right.
This
or
is what I like
happening-
about African spirituality, because it's a
Fate of your destiny.
self-sufficient type practice. So when you become self-sufficient and you understand how to worship, call, ask, because sometimes I don't know what's going on. You ask these questions, you know, you get advice, you do this, you do that. If you don't know how to do that in your basic practice, there are going to be a lot of situations where you're going to question what happened because you're not self-sufficient in your practice. And I'm talking about not dependent on a priest to come and do this, not dependent on an outside entity. You yourself going, constantly doing your offerings, constantly worshiping, constantly doing this, constantly doing what you need to do. If you're not doing that, because that's what the practice calls for,
So
there's going to be instances where you're going to be like, what happened there?
So I'm gonna ask this question, then I'm gonna segue into another question. So, but everything you just gave me seems like this is so individual based. Like, what do communities then do?
Well,
right? And how
everything
how
that
does
I
this
gave
all-
you,
yeah,
it's supposed to be your family there with you. It's supposed to be, communities can come. We have a concept called Ose, which is basically worship on a deity's certain day. I can perform Ose by myself with my deity. Fine. What's really supposed to be happening is your family's supposed to be coming there doing Ose with you. What really can happen is the community show up and do Ose with you. This is why African homes are built the way they're built. and that compound structure in which you have so many families and this is their compound, because all these people coming out at the same time and going, oh, this is this day. This is what we need to be doing on this day.
Gotcha.
So everybody in the community becomes involved in this communal practice to where it's no longer individual. For us in America, unfortunately, we usually the black sheep of the family, right? We're usually the people that take it away from Christianity, away from Islam, away from Judaism. Whether you go the Kemet route, the Voodoo route, or whatever, you usually the person, unfortunately, by yourself at your shrine doing whatever.
So that makes me then want to segue into. So we had a discussion about Ma'at, right? And so sometimes I tell people that this Orisha worship started with a people. I'm not saying they can't go nowhere. It's true, they can travel. But it started with a people who created a cosmology and a mythology around how they saw life and how they viewed the world and their worldview. And it's theirs.
As an ethnic group.
Yeah, as
Right.
an ethnic group. It's theirs. It's not
not universal.
It's not universal.
It is, but it ain't. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. With like, so part of our conversation was about a lot of times when people describe Ma'at, they combine Ma'at
With
cause and effect,
yeah,
and karma.
Yeah, these are not the
And
same
for
thing.
me, I think all three of these things are not universal principles.
No,
Maybe cause and effect,
they can't be.
but not Ma'at and not karma.
It's a
certain.
relationship. It's a relationship with my. I mean, far as and the term karma, but there's a relationship. The relationship is when these things are out of order, out of balance, then you get this effect. That is the relationship. It's not necessarily a cause. It is cause and effect. At the end of the day, it's still cause and effect because these things are out of order, you get this effect. Because these things are balanced, you get this effect. So it is. The thing is, it ain't associated necessarily with the Hindu or whatever the Asian thing, but they think it's similar.
So, but my question then is we didn't have reduced Ma'at to
Only
to cause and effect, where Ma'at was a part of a entire system of ideas, thoughts, and beliefs.
it's like a
Same with
process.
karma. Karma.
I don't subscribe to Ma'at being a universal principle. And the reason why is because we define Ma'at as balance, truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, these things that the ancient Ramage said that this is what the deity the nature known as Ma'at represents. Brother Rome said it earlier. The people that we are fighting and the oppressors that we have identified do not have these things in their society or their culture.
But that don't make it not universal though. The problem
That's exactly what makes it not
no,
universal.
Let me tell you why I say this, and this is where I disagree with this. It can still be an operating principle that somebody is going against, a group is going against. The universe has its own order. When things go out of whack because of somebody, because we do have this ability to impact different systems on the earth. We have an impact because we have this consciousness, this awareness that we can force change inside of a structure. So if these people have this ability to do this, they go against an order, but they really don't go against the order. They actually performing their position in it because they see things from a certain angle versus we see things from a certain viewpoint, vantage point, right? So they tend to see things more as outside themselves, and we see things ourselves, see things as being a part of things. So there is some dynamics there with that. So, but the order still, the systems, the processes that come about through reciprocities, these things that are attributed to Ma'at, they still universal principles. Just because a group tend to go against it based off of their vantage point, don't mean it doesn't exist as a universal principle.
And this is where I disagree, because we are taking the attributes of Ma'at. We forget Ma'at is a deity. Ma'at's a deity to be worshipped. Ma'at's a deity to be offered to. Ma'at's a deity to be chanted to be sung to be praised, to be called upon. And that's what they did. Everybody not doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody don't see these principles as deities either.
Yeah.
They saw these principles being essential to the balance and order of life in ancient Kemet and said, we need to deify this great principle, give it an archetype, a black woman, an ostrich feather, something that represents power and strength and things that will keep the kingdom intact, keep the king on the throne, keep the people happy, keep the agriculture, keep all these things in alignment.
Yeah.
Everybody don't look at that like that.
Yeah.
Everybody don't do that. Hell, it's some groups that represent Kemet don't look at it like that. So I get what you're saying, as these things do exist in life. These things do exist all over the world. Balance, truth, justice. Yes, absolutely. But what that looks like for individual cultures and ethnic groups changes. Truth here
we agree with
is
you.
not truth there. You know what I'm saying? Because we talking about our oppressors' truth is what they decide is going to be today. If the IRS come up with some numbers and they can fudge some stuff and say, hey, you owe $5,000.
Let me ask you a question.
Man, I filed my taxes. We ain't got no record of that.
Let me ask you a question, though. Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Because you look at something different, don't mean what is not is. You know what I mean? Like, you can have something, and just because you don't look at it a certain way, don't mean it still is not what it is.
But if I look at it differently in my culture versus how you look at it in your culture, it's not a universal principle.
No, what I mean by universal, I think how what you think I'm saying is that like everybody practices the same. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's still there.
It still exists.
Yeah, it still exists.
I get what
It's
you're saying.
That order, that justice.
It exists.
I don't care what system you're in, what people you are. If you don't follow certain fundamental things get out of whack for you. I don't care who you are.
I understand that.
Come from.
But I wouldn't. But that limit, like he said, that limits Ma'at to me because it's not just about balance. It's about all these other things.
These other principles are universal,
and
but Ma'at is not universal
because Ma'at is a deity.
Universal.
Yeah. I hit you, you get mad.
Everybody and everything in the universe is the same.
Right.
Yeah.
But
cause and effect is real.
Ma'at is a deity.
Yeah, I'm not talking
you don't have to believe in cause and effect for it to work.
For it to happen.
You have to believe in Ma'at if you want to follow those principles.
Right.
And you have an option to believe in those principles or not believe in those principles.
From that perspective, I see.
You can't not believe in cause and effect.
Right.
It happens.
That's in science, math, whatever.
And that makes it a universal truth. Ma'at is not a universal truth. Ma'at is a moral system that we believe in. You don't have to believe in it.
It's moral though, because
moral.
Yeah, I'm saying because if, for instance, if you cut down all the trees right on that hill, which used to slow down rainwater from coming out, and it floods your town.
That's cause and effect.
But the whole point is you should have had balance in your society. To know that I don't need to be overabundantly cutting down trees.
But the reason why
that is cause and effect, but that's not necessarily Ma'at.
Yeah, you don't need
the reciprocity though. They all talk the reciprocity.
But there is no reciprocity. That reciprocity is something that we believed in, and that's something we should practice towards one another, and we do not always practice it towards one another. The other people do not believe in it. They do not practice it.
I'm not talking about
and they don't believe it.
People. I think that's what we different.
You're just talking about it exists.
Yeah, I'm saying in general, these things go beyond just relationship with people. These principles, they go with how you treat nature, how you do everything.
But at that point, you're not talking about Ma'at anymore. You are talking about cause and effect, and we have to be able to separate them. If I cut that tree down, if I cut that plant down, it will stop living. It has nothing to do with Ma'at. It has to do with the fact that I've cut it off, and now those leaves can no longer get a supply of the nutrients they need from the soil. That is cause and effect. There is no Ma'at involved in that.
So here's what I think. I think
you don't need Ma'at. You don't have to apply Ma'at to everything. Cause and effect applies to everything.
I think my issue is that people do that. I've done that, taking these deities out of their system for our convenience, like to apply these deities in a way that fits us, as opposed to how they were intended. Like people do it with Orisha all the time.
Yes.
Like people who don't practice any Orisha worship tell you they're a child of some Orisha.
And
Like where
how-
you get
how you doing?
how did you arrive, or just because you a bumblebee landed on your shoulder,
now
and
you're
you
a child of
associate
Oshun.
yourself like like that's Oshun. No, that's a bumblebee.
That's a B. You need to get it off.
Oshun is not the bee. But because they want to pull these things out of the context of their origins and where they're supposed to be, they create confusion
Yeah.
and just call the thing what it is.
But I
And we're
also
gonna be
think
talking
we
about
need to get away.
reciprocity. Let's talk about reciprocity. If we're going to talk about cause and effect,
Yeah.
let's talk about cause and effect. We do not have to talk about reciprocity, cause and effect, harmony, balance in the context of Ma'at. These things stand alone, separate from Ma'at.
But I also think we need to get away from fusing in this syncretism of Ma'at and karma.
Yeah.
They're separate.
Because when you look at karma, and this comes from, the people that it came from, whether you look at it from a Hindu perspective, a Buddhist perspective, a Taoism perspective, a Sikhism perspective, a Jainism perspective, these people don't even agree.
They don't.
You will find karma in all of these civilizations.
But it all came from Hindu.
And it all comes from
But
them.
those religions come from Hindu
and
also.
they can't agree with what karma is. Some of them say karma is when you get reincarnated and come back.
Wait,
Some of them
two
some
forms
of
of
them
karma.
say-
Two forms of karma.
Yeah.
It's not one.
But all of them see it differently. It's like some people solely focus on the reincarnation.
Right.
Some people say, no, this can happen in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between these 5 groups of people. But we just say, oh, karma got you. We can't even define what karma is.
And we always say karma got you, and we feel like it's instantaneous.
Right.
I always see black
And
people
and
apply
that's not
karma
what
like,
these people say.
Oh, that bad shit happened to them. That's karma.
Yeah, that's karma.
But we think that in our cases, karma is instantaneous.
Right.
When it comes to these other people, we're like, oh well, they'll get theirs later. Well, shit.
That's
500 years is
but that's-
but
that's
mine
the
comes
danger.
an hour later.
Right.
That's the danger
Yeah.
to my point. That becomes the danger in taking a component of something and isolating it alone.
That's what we do in Western civilization.
That's what I was like. I was just about to
That's
say,
what we do.
We're still doing it though.
We're still
because-
doing it.
We're still doing it though. We're still doing it even when we say separating the so-called cause and effect from the principles of I. Let me say that so you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We're still doing that. We're still.
But cause and effect doesn't come from a system.
So what I'm saying though, what I'm saying is we're still doing it because we're not looking at it holistically. Those things are still, you still get a effect from not doing whatever uphold those principles. Holding them up. If you hold them up, you still get an effect. How you not?
What you mean? You get an effect from not holding. So we get an effect from not holding up my eye.
No. I say the principles.
So from not holding up the principles,
Right. If you do not hold them up, or you hold them up. Whatever you do, there's an effect. No matter whether positive or negative, there's an effect regardless.
But
Yeah.
it's one thing in many African systems,
Mhm.
when you separate the divinity from the worship of the divinity, then you have discredited, like you're not really engaging that divinity because you're not practicing the worship of that divinity.
Right.
You want to have that divinity in principle, in idea, but that divinity is designed and intended to be worshipped for you to get
No, I get that.
Right.
what that divinity
But the
has.
only reason I'm saying that so we to understand how I'm relating the holistic nature of having these principles.
No, I get what you're saying as far as principles.
It does fit with it.
I get what you're saying.
It's like a puzzle. It's like you
The principles are universal. I'm just saying that
But my eye
my
is a whole.
I as a divinity
Yeah.
is not universal.
It's
That's
not.
what I was thinking.
But explain to me how the
That's what I was
the
saying.
principle of harmony is universal.
That's a good, and that's what I was saying earlier
So
about
proof.
different cultures have different
Harmony.
aspects of harmony. So when we talk about social Darwinism, we're talking about things like manifest destiny. We're talking about things like doctrine of discovery. We're talking about things like basically if you got it and God gave me the power to take it from you.
But those
I
not
should
harmony,
take-
right?
That's harmony
It is
to them. Because they've been doing it for 500
That's
years.
not-
And they do it good.
But that's not the double.
Whose definition? Who determines that?
No.
And so this is
What
why
you say harmony is?
No, I'm asking the question again. Show me harmony. So if harmony is universal,
say-
how does it look?
No.
What's that look like?
Harmony is a balanced society, right?
Balanced society.
So how's it different than balance?
Balance.
Harmony is one principle. Harmony is a different one. So
balance.
balance and harmony are different principles of mine, are they not?
Yeah.
So
They're named that way.
In the translation it is. But
Yeah.
in the translation, English translation.
Okay, but
that's
they're
what it's saying,
separate.
yeah.
They are separate principles.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm asking just the principle of
Same
harmony.
with justice though.
Right. All of them are. All of the same thing.
Yeah.
So again, it's hard to say these
I
things
would
are
say they were
universal
same
because they
things.
don't.
If they're the same thing, then
Universal
why call them
definition.
something different?
No. What I'm saying is, they still will be there. Because even within their society, right? They create harmony for them society on how they see fit, right?
How they see fit.
Which means it's not universal.
No.
Because we see it different, which means it's not universal.
That's what I'm saying. But still, if they don't have order in their society, their society could collapse too. It doesn't matter who the society is; it would collapse without it.
But what does
Then
that
it's not
order look like?
universal. If it looks different to me,
There.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
but if
Yeah.
you're saying that those principles, if you're saying those principles are universal, then they're going to look the same to everyone.
There you
That's what
go.
universal means.
There you go.
They posted out
They
of
don't.
order, and their
They don't.
society is still holding
don't.
up right now.
They completely different.
When they did what they did to the Native Americans and they created blessings for them, their children's children, they established colonies. It became
if I throw this jug,
it became
it will
harmonious for
break.
them.
It is going to be the same cause and effect for everybody in this room, for all people
Right.
involved.
So
That's universal.
Yeah.
Universal means it applies to everyone and everything equally. That's
Yeah.
just the definition
I
of universal.
want to get one more thing in here because Ben, go ahead, show your book right quick, first of all. So we talk about that because I want to make the segment in the next way.
This is the book I wrote, Is African Spirituality a Religion? I go into the question that many people ask, is African spirituality religion? I cover what is a religion. I covered it from a variety of sources. I show the antithesis when it comes to African systems, and I make an argument that it is actually not a religion, and where we are categorized as African people when we categorize it as a religion, and how that is directly in line with white supremacy.
Gotcha. So
And then
go ahead.
Killmonger's Corner, Pan-African Journal for the Conscious Community, something I put together years ago. Different authors writing different articles for this journal. You can pick this up as well on Amazon, or you can contact me wherever. So, yeah.
He's a professor. He knows what camera to look into and everything. So to segue that, and we stay on it. So Tree is working on some work, right?
Mhm.
And as you explain it in depth. So my question, what I've always struggled with, I know brother Asai Imhotep is working on some things around Kimoyo and these things. Going back to being black, going back to being African. I always say that it is the African in North America that is the most disrespected and unappreciated African on the planet, right? That we helped usher in Pan-Africanism and the idea of being African collectively. We helped them, not again, the Caribbeans and folks who came, but we helped usher in. A lot of them got their leverage dealing with Africans in America. Garvey came here. You know, Sylvester came here, right? So to get the leverage. But when you think about where we are and how we looked at as Africans, and this idea that even do we even have a defined culture? Like it's easy to go into the Caribbean, right, and see more defined cultures. To go into South America and to see more defined, even if they're hybrid cultures, they're cultures that are highly reflective of African origins and what it means. We think about, say, African are expressions of African culture, but does the Black African in America have a culture? If we do not, should we establish something? So we, as we was just talking about, all of these groups define these things for the collective group, right? The Yoruba, the Igbo, their worldview was defined by the world they lived in and by them. And they deified what they wanted to deify in agreement. We seem to have just tried to absorb pieces from and never have anything that has any real cohesiveness to it. Now, some people will, and I'm not arguing that it's a case for it with Old Tunji Village, I think there's a good argument there, right, about some a cohesive group of people who came together
Absolutely.
and created a society for themselves here in North America. But where y'all stand on that? Do we have a culture? And what is that culture? Is it a defined culture? Do we need to define it? But what's your thoughts around that?
It's hip hop.
It's hip hop.
Definitely part of it. It's definitely part of it.
I mean, that first part of what you said is that we are kind of slept on, underrated.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is how we view ourselves also. If you go other places in the Caribbean, for instance, they look at themselves as being African, and they have a more they are a little bit more cohesive. Of course, they're on a smaller landmass most of the time, islands, etc. So you have to work
And
with
have the numbers.
and
They
have
deep.
numbers.
Yeah, they deep. Yeah.
And we are
Majority is them.
and we are real spread out
Yeah.
in a big land in the belly of this beast.
Yeah.
And we don't all have the same view. And part of what Bennett said earlier, he was talking about, you know, in Africa, they looked at one another by tribe, and we are still very, very tribal. That is one thing. It seems like we are a tribe all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we are tribal
Absolutely.
with a nationalistic enemy, and that shit doesn't work. It's never worked,
Right.
not ever.
So
Yeah, I agree.
So I think part of it is how we view ourselves, and because we view ourselves, the rest of the world is gonna look at it the way we view ourselves. If we all looked at ourselves and viewed ourselves as God, the rest of the world will too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dog agree.
Absolutely. The dog agree. The dog just agreeing with what we
yes.
what we said. I definitely think you said something earlier about it being a bit of a hybrid culture. We have taken on some foreign elements and made them into our culture here in America. It's our culture is very diverse. It's interwoven. We got African things from the continent in our culture that we didn't even know was a black thing until, you know, research came out. We have things that we've created here in America that people have either stolen, copied, borrowed, and gave back, you know, stuff like that. Then we have things that we've, you know, adopted from, you know, foreign cultures. But I always say when it comes to black people in America, when it comes to entertainment, arts, media, we are the culture. I mean, I remember playing in and one games, and they came in the locker room and handed us all headbands that they said swagger on it. The hell white folks start saying swagger. Like, you know, what's going on here? As fast as we can create it, as fast as it's going to be commercialized, as fast as it's going to get out to America. I mean, the whole Twitter is black Twitter. You know, we push these things because we're so creative and charismatic, and it gets out to the world and it becomes absorbed into regular society where we don't even remember where this stuff started as black. Like, it could be just for us four in this room. It get out to one person, all of a sudden, it's an advertisement next week. Culturally responsible podcast sponsored by Walmart. You're like, what the? Hold on. Like, what happened here? This is just supposed to be for black folk.
Yeah.
But like we said, they will steal. So the universal principle for them sometimes is stealing.
That's what
you know, so, and it's stealing our culture, the things that we have, you know, came.
I get that.
Yeah, so
but I
always
think
say
there's
we
no
are the
cohesiveness, though. I think that
I get what you're saying.
Agree that hip hop, these expressions of culture.
Yeah.
But our cohesiveness only seems to be seen in struggle. It's like direct physical harm. Then we bond together on blackness. Like, but as soon as the immediate
threat is neutralized,
like we back to not being a monolith again. Like, you know, black people ain't a monolith. Like, nobody's a monolith.
Nobody.
Well, we have to be the ones that felt the need to have to express this
monolith.
But we got a shared struggle.
Yeah.
And as Drake say, we taking a shared ass whooping. And we losing.
And we lose
collectively.
And we lose.
So I don't know. So is it only going to be this? Are we trauma bonding, to use that term?
We are.
Like
We are.
that's our culture based in trauma
Yeah,
bonding.
it's rooted in trauma. And the problem I see is like most of these ethnic groups, like even when you're talking about Yoruba, Igbo, or whatever group, whatever, I don't care what group, you know, Bakuba, Kuba, whatever. Everything is rooted in experiences in their society.
Correct.
Even the deities, it has rooted in something. Like we had this conversation one time before about the Yoruba tradition about this chicken and saying and creating.
Oh, the foul.
Yeah. So my thing is, okay, maybe they were just cleaning off swampland. You know what I'm saying, and drying up the land, and that's what this story is about. You know what I mean? Like all these stories, over time they change, and they become these.
And they're metaphorical.
Yeah, metaphorical and mythological stories, but they rooted in something that actually happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have traditions here that we never consciously did that to, like a John the Conqueror, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We have these things that at some point they was associated with it. Even these so-called Burr Rabbit stories in the past. These stories were associated with had to link to the continent.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't consciously create these things and kept retelling them.
Right.
Our society, since we've been here, it's been a continual, almost like an eternal evolution. Like so we have this period, then change this period. There's never no stability. That's why
is that due to our identity crisis? Is it that these other groups of Africans have agreed that they're Jamaican, even if somebody could argue about the word Jamaica, or you know what I mean? But they have at least agreed on identity where we haven't collectively agreed.
our focus been outward more than theirs, I think, to a certain degree, because they can actually focus on like the island or whatever they're in. Whereas we gotta always focus on how we respond to the larger society.
Got it.
I think that has took us away from how we fix the problem internally, because you're fighting this battle outside of it.
It's very hard to fight a battle and deal with inner workings of society at the same time. I mean, for an example, there are pyramids in Egypt that collapsed. Like I believe Pharaoh Hunai's pyramid collapsed. But at the time, if you look at the timeline, they were at war. So they couldn't make it. They probably didn't have the time to make it like they made Giza and the Red Pyramid.
Yeah.
Like, hey, so I'm jumping off. Leave you two, let's go. You know, so it's very hard for that internal struggle to be addressed in its proper, manner when you always got this in the background.
So Trey, tell us about what you offered in response to that.
So what I came up with is a philosophy principle centered around ethical rules, to create mores, to create these principles that are about how do we react with each other, how do we treat each other, and that's what they centered around. But I also created a cosmology, which is coming out next, and this cosmology would explain from our perspective, from how we've lived here and how we see things, as how we identify the deity and like how everything materialized from that. So I've created something that's essential for us, but it also linked to the continent, because it's the same principle that they have in some of the traditional societies. So I've used Central African words and terminologies to explain it. And the reason I see this need is because we do have somewhat of a culture, but it's only reactionary to the larger society. So, I mean, you look at it, even we talk about the collard greens and the pork and things that people used to eat and how
Black eyed peas
and all that.
Yeah.
It was a reaction to certain things that was happening in this large society. Now, I mean, some of these things came from the continent, like the okra and all that, and rice and all that. So, yeah, we get that. But the way we formulate this stuff, these foods and these dishes, was a response because of how we was treated. We couldn't eat this, we couldn't eat that. Everything has been a response. In all my books, there's not a mention of the large society at all. And it's purposefully. It's because we have to focus on, if we say something is this way, it is this way. That is what the problem is, the lack of confidence globally with African people. It's people waiting on someone else to come up with something for them. We got ideals that's just as valid and beyond valid than some of these people. We talked about the concepts of Big Bang long before these people ever came up with the concepts.
Facts.
We just gotta embrace these things and put it at the forefront. This is what we believe. This is what we stand on. This is what we arrive to this. That's what has to be marketed to the people so they can see these concepts.
Right.
We can build it. We can build the new Kemet. We can build a new whatever. Timbuktu, Jenne, whatever. We can build these places. The new Oyo. It's just a matter of people coming together with like minds and doing it. It's all about doing it. The root for all the words terms for God is the doer. And all the traditional African language is do. We have to do that. You got to do that. I'm saying you got to see yourself. If we believe that God is in everything, or God, I'm using this term, this generic term. If we believe the deity is in us, then be the deity. Do it. Become a doer. It's just that simple. In my book. I mean, it's simple, but it's a complex of being so in such disarray that's causing the problems.
We can leave it right there. So before we wrap up, at least the recording aspect of this, I'm gonna ask y'all, along with your own books, give the people. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be a lecture for people like me.
I definitely recommend you some books. Like we can make a bit.
Large print with pictures, please.
Nope.
Yeah, just and I think what happens too. Take a second, and I'll probably catch you off guard, but think for a second too, man. Something a little bit more recent authors and writers and producers of things. I think we go back and we know that people need what we call the classics. But I think we also, as part of that progression, we don't give credit to people who are producing things right now, giving critical analysis in real time. The struggle hasn't changed, but the nuances of that struggle has changed, and we do need to adjust and modify our approaches due to that. So, Ron, what you I can't write at you. That's what,
He said, I thought we were gonna go the other way.
Listen, thought you had it.
He was like that with the bowl. You thought he was gonna start.
So you asking me out a book or a lecture?
Yeah, anything you want to suggest people tap into that's been helpful to you.
Oh, that's recent.
More recent than, let's say, the classics, the miseducations, the destruction of black civilizations. Those things was those beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one. I know I can't skip, but I'm right now. Everything that I read now, I'm putting together into my own philosophy. I don't know if there's going to be something that's gonna work for everybody.
Yeah. What you reading?
Right now I'm reading Disordered Cosmos.
Okay.
Who's that by?
Shonda Weinstein. She's a black astrophysicist.
Okay. I've heard of her.
There's less than 100 black women who have PhDs in physics.
Absolutely.
And she is looking at it from an African perspective. So even looking at particle physics and quarks and leptons and all that, but she's looking at it from an African perspective. So that's something that of course, me being in my body here on Earth, I got to deal with what's going on on this planet. But also things that are going on in this whole universe, it gives me a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So those are the things when you do go into meditation and things, that's when I'm looking at how I'm fitting in with all things.
Yeah.
So and that is shaping me right now, just getting a bigger picture. And in that she talks about the disparity in how we are discounted as scientists. But she talks about how, there were Africans here on this continent, slavery, who were just looking up at stars and mapping these stars out. We were using them to get free, and we have always been scientists. That's just part of our nature.
That's part of our culture.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in what we have to do right now, and we forget about things that need to go into building a nation for ourselves. And that nation is not, everybody's not going to be soldiers. Everybody's not going to be warriors. Somebody got to be an engineer. Somebody got to be a scientist. Somebody got to be an author, an herbologist, all these different things. So it's giving me a broader perspective of what it is that we had before and what it is that we do need going forward. But I still hold on to my gun.
That's right.
Gotta hold on to the guns.
They can shoot.
Have you read Astrophysics for People in a Hurry?
I finished that Neil deGrasse Tyson,
good.
and I got his other one, the bigger Cosmos book. But
Yeah,
the
I
thing
haven't
that I
read that
don't,
one yet.
I like his books, and he's looking at things at a high level. He's really taking that whole he's taking our whole social structure out of it and looking at it.
It's just science. It's just
So, and you can tell when he's writing it, he's being very scientific about it, but he also is appealing to a white audience.
it's a
broader audience.
Yeah.
And she's recognizing, no, we are African people, and this is part of our culture.
I'm like, check it out.
And she goes a lot deeper, I feel, into the science of it. Because I had a whole chapter at a time where I'm like, what is she talking about?
you got a pad or you write down terms and Google it.
Get into a paragraph before I got to go look stuff up. But yeah, that's what I enjoy that.
For me, I made a little list.
Man, I'm supposed to make a list.
All books by
You so prepared.
I like to be prepared, man. It's the old goon in me. Dr. Foucault's books. You know, all of his self-healing power therapy, African Bantu, not cosmology. I think those are all still great books. If you're looking for the Yoruba perspective, I would say all books by Baba Wande Abimbola. The Awishi of Ile Ife breaks them down really in a digestible manner. His book, Ifa Will Heal a Broken World, goes over a lot of the differences of what we were talking about earlier between our Cuban counterparts and the West African counterparts, which helps here in America because the majority of Orisha practice you will see today is modeled after Cuban societies. Death and Invisible Powers by Simon Biaki. Goes into the Congo element as well, but it talks about a period in America when they were practicing these type of things when they got here. The people from Congo brought here and, you know, what they did with that knowledge. Book called Shadow Mothers. It's a recent book by a brother in Babalawo Obafemi Origunwa, and I will look right into the camera and say, the sisters that believe they are witches, please read this book. And that's all I'm going to say. Spears of the Masi, volume 1 through 4 by the group that I am a part of and sponsor, the Kofi Piche research team. I did do the forward for volume 1. Spears of the Masi covers a lot of historical titles. It's a historical survey of African culture. 4 volumes you can pick up. Either one, you ain't got to pick them up in order. They don't pick up when you left off. They're just all historical surveys on different topics. Great books. Of course, my book, shameless plug, is African Spirituality and Religion. Definitely that and the Killmonger's Corners, volume 1 and 2, would be my recommendations.
Yeah, me, myself, I've been going back reading things that's dealing with social aspects of people because that's what I'm on now, how to organize societies. So the one I'm reading now is called The Pastoralist of Gwandu, and it's about the Fulani culture in northern Nigeria. So I'm reading that. And how nomadic culture and how they have these honors, how it's based off honor and all these things. So I'm dealing with that. Me, myself, I'm like I said again, I'm writing philosophy, which is in Wolof, which is the Horrible Rafet, written in English. Here is a Summer Yakele, which is a spiritual prayer book. And next will be coming out is the Ikwene and the Musia, which is the cosmological book. And the point of trying to address gaps that I see in our thinking. I'm trying to address those things. And I think, again, like Roman said, not everybody's going to be, you know, the warriors. There's going to be other people doing different things. So my focus is on creating a philosophical ideology to back whatever group, the establishment that we create at some point.
Indeed. You don't want a society full of warriors.
No.
It's gonna be some problems.
Right.
It's gonna be some problems.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power by Dr. Jared Ball. It's at the top of my list right now. I'm going to also, it's a sister who wrote a book, I can't remember her name right off hand, but it's called It's Not You, It's Capitalism. Good book. So those are the 2 books that I'm engaged in now. A lot of my conversations lately have been around economics and finance and money and get to the bag culture. And I think that is one of the greatest obstacles in getting in our way of getting our people to engage in a collective struggle for liberation is this idea of gross individualism that if I can get wealthy, then somehow I would then in turn finance my people's liberation. At least that's the justification is. I'm gonna get to the bag. Had a good conversation with a brother who's that was his. He was like, well, can a brother get his capital and then all the brothers is if we all individually get our bag up, then we can all come together and then move together as a unit. And I was like, that's literally not how capitalism or no, how wealth is developed. Wealth is developed collectively. It is the collective work of people that actually builds the wealth. How wealth is disseminated is different. But wealth is only built collectively. And so this idea that you can establish wealth individually is,
It's a hard road.
So, appreciate y'all, brothers.
I want to be free. I want you to be free. I want us to be a self-governing people, not having to ask the white man or anybody for anything. All normal, healthy human beings want to be self-governing and self-determining. I want to have a black power. I want to have a black government. When I say black power, I'm talking about black freedom. I'm talking about big lip freedom. I'm talking about broad nose freedom. I'm talking about nappy hair freedom. I'm talking about boombox on your shoulder freedom.